Hi everyone. Welcome to week 4 of this virtual S.P.A.R.K Leadership Conference webinar series. My name is Taylor Anderson and I am crew leader number 12. Today, we will hear from several panelists that will talk about their social change, the social change they have enacted within their communities. We will learn about our Diversity Center program here at Mississippi State, and we will hear from the Vice President of Diversity, Access, and Inclusion here at Mississippi State University. As you fight for your voices to be heard, we want to make sure you have all the information you need so you can fully understand how important it is for social justice to be enacted within our country. Let's head over to our video about our Diversity Center program here at Mississippi State University.
So what's in there?
This is the Holmes Cultural Diversity Center.
The Holmes Cultural Diversity Center? Is that where you go to learn about different cultures?
Sort of. Let's go in and I can show y'all around. When I first walked in as a freshman, I wasn't really sure what to expect. But I've met tons of interesting people here. And I've had the opportunity to learn about different cultures from around the world by talking with other students. It has become one of my favorite spots on campus. As the most diverse university in the SEC, this center was created to celebrate our diverse community at MSU and named after MSU's first African-American student, Richard Holmes.
So it's not just for minority students?
Far from it. It provides students of all races and backgrounds access to resources like the computer lab, student leadership opportunities, and just a place to relax and study.
This is a great space. Do you mind if we stay a while?
Sure.
The Holmes Cultural Diversity Center is your home away from home on the MSU campus. Hang out and study in the lounge or get your work done in our computer lab. But the center is more than just a place to be. It's a place to connect. We are home to a number of student organizations covering nearly every part of student life. The Black Student Association helps African American student organizations achieve their goals, serving as the main liaison between university administration and underrepresented MSU students. Black Voices serves the spiritual needs of the university and local communities through gospel music performances. The Ideal Woman program encourages and motivates women to create and use leadership skills, enhancing themselves and those with whom they interact and excelling beyond typical expectations. The International Student Advisory Board provides programming and initiatives and advocates for policies designed to improve international students' overall university experience. The ISAB is the international student voice on campus. The Latino Student Association works to bring the Hispanic and Latino culture together at MSU. FLAIR focuses on advancing a culture of equality, diversity, and inclusion for LGBTQ+ students on campus. The Linking Internationals and the Community Organization fosters cross-cultural learning, increases diversity awareness, and provides a support system for international students at MSU. The Men of Excellence program encourages confidence, integrity, self-respect, and self-esteem, while providing positive role models and networking opportunities among students and professionals in educational, industrial, and recreational communities. The MSU NAACP chapter improves the political, educational, social, and economic status of minority groups on and off campus. The Native American Student Association unifies MSU's population of Native American students, faculty, staff, descendants, allies, and supporters, and those simply interested in or learning about Native culture and people. The Peers Assisting with Students program addresses low retention rates among first-year students, helping freshmen and transfers make successful academic and social transitions to university life. Check out our interactive website to learn more about who we are and what we do. Welcome to the Holmes Cultural Diversity Center, and welcome to Mississippi State.
Hey y'all, my name is Gabby Deere. I am crew leader number 4, and today we have the pleasure of sitting with Vice President Rashida Forbes. Mrs. Forbes is the Vice President for Access, Diversity, and Inclusion for our university. Ms. Forbes, can you tell us a little bit about your role here at Mississippi State?
Yeah, thank you all so much for having me. Really excited about the opportunity to talk about the work that happens here at the university with diversity and inclusion, access, equity here. So a little bit about our division. Our division is really responsible for being a support system to students. When we think about the demographics of Mississippi State, that almost 40% of our students here are first-generation college students, or almost 40% of our students come from low socioeconomic status based upon Pell eligibility, or the fact that, over 17% of our students here are Black. We recognize that we as a university have a responsibility to support students. And so the Division of Access, Diversity, and Inclusion does that. We are made up of several different departments. So our Holmes Cultural Diversity Center has over 12 different student organizations that's meant to serve as a support system for students and community for students. We have so many different programs and events that we do through the Holmes Cultural Diversity Center. Our TRIO program is for first-generation college students, so allowing them to find support here and learn how to navigate the university. We have our Thrive program, which is for homeless students or students who have come from foster care, or even students who've been separated from their parents and have guardians. And so that's a support system for them. And then our Office of Institutional Diversity and Inclusion really helps with our faculty and staff here at the university.
Okay, so as you know, our segment is about social justice. So how has HCDC been involved in social justice?
So when I think about what the role of social justice is, one of the things that I think is important is to define what social justice is. And I would define social justice as making things that were wrong right. Mm-hmm. So when we think about things that may not be equitable to students, or when we think about ways in which students might not get the financial support that they need, or might not have the community that they need, that is really the ways in which the Division of Access, Diversity, and Inclusion support that. We work to provide financial assistance for students who may be struggling financially here at the university. We have a lot of programs and events where students can learn about what social justice is and be engaged in the work of social justice. If I can kind of point to just this summer, one of the student leaders within our office, or several student leaders in our office, really partnered with the city and the community here to host the Starkville Stand Up, where everyone had the opportunity to come together, learn about social justice, and then take an active part in educating the community and educating ourselves around what social justice is and what our responsibility is. And so that's a lot of what we do. Is centered around programs, it's centered around policies, and it's centered around processes here at the university.
Okay. Why are cultural centers so important on college campuses today?
I think that's a great question. So I think place, people, and space is really important. So oftentimes when some students come to the university, they feel like they don't fit. And it's not that they don't fit within the institution, but I think they have a hard time finding community. And oftentimes that's what cultural centers are. It's an opportunity for people to connect based upon a particular identity. And that identity doesn't just have to be the fact that I'm Black or the fact that I identify as being Latino or Hispanic. There are some students that connect because they identify as being gay, or students that connect because they have a particular religious affiliation, or students that connect because they're women. And so our cultural spaces really bring students together to connect in those different ways. But then it's also a place where people can just let their hair down and be themselves. So we serve food in our center, and we have TVs in our centers, and we have study spaces in our centers where students can really build relationships with each other, because that's really important in college.
Mm-hmm. So I know that you're involved with a lot of organizations within HCDC. Do you have any personal stories or anecdotes that you can share about students who have gotten involved in HCDC and have flourished?
Yeah, I mean, so the Ideal Woman program, which is a leadership program, geared towards helping women accomplish whatever goals that they want to accomplish. One of the students who created the Ideal Woman is now a dean at a college, and the second president of the Ideal Woman program owns her own restaurants in Houston, Texas. And so the organization is really created to be a network for women who want to accomplish things in life. Those things could be academic, those things can be career, but then it's just an awesome opportunity for women to come together and just talk about things that impact women. Or when I think about our Men of Excellence program, which is the brother program to the Ideal Woman program, many of the individuals that participate in this program has gone on to be really active in student organizations here on campus, or president of our student body here. And so I think that getting connected to a lot of the organizations that we have to offer really helps build the skill set of students and what it is that they want to do later.
Okay, and I'll have one final question. Do you have any advice for entering college students? Any advice when they don't really know where they belong? Any advice for them?
So I think my biggest advice will be start somewhere. So I always kind of lead talking about like my story. And I know it was a long time ago because I'm far removed from college. But when I first came, I'm a two-time grad from Mississippi State. And when I first came to the university, you know, I didn't want to come to Mississippi State. And so my parents said, oh, well, if you hate it here, you can transfer off and go somewhere else. So I was like, this would be great. Like, I'll just make myself hate it here and I'll transfer off. But I had a good community of people who said, no, you need to just start somewhere and get plugged in. And that's what I did. I got started and I got plugged in with student organizations on campus that I felt like caused me to have friendships that still last to the day. Like my RA in college was my bridesmaid in my wedding, or one of my faculty mentors is the godmother to my children. And so getting connected, not suffering silence, find your network, finding your community is really, really important. And it doesn't have to look like what you thought it should look like. Start with building relationships with people within your residence hall or in the food court at the union. Just find some way to get connected because it really makes a difference in college.
Those are awesome answers. Let's take a look at some questions from our students. Okay, so with the general election coming up, it's so important to vote. So why is it so important? What advice would you give to students on the importance of voting?
Yeah, no, I think that is an excellent question, and it's really on everybody's minds right now. I think the biggest thing that I would say is that every election has consequences. And voting really is our way to put action to our voice. Oftentimes, you know, the default is maybe I shouldn't vote because, like, does my vote really matter? And the answer is our vote always matters. Even if the election doesn't turn out the way we wanted it to, one of the things that I think about voting is that it holds our individuals in public office accountable. And I think that the closer the races are, the more healthier it is for the voting process. And so I really encourage everyone to get out and vote, use your voice, put action to your voice by going to the polls.
Okay. And this might be a little personal question, but I know you mentioned you had boys earlier. And in a time where social injustice is so prevalent in the African American community, what do you tell your boys growing up as young black men in this community?
You know, one of the things is that I'm super honest with my boys that the way they navigate the world might not be the way that other people have to navigate the world. And so my responsibility, I think as a mother, is to let my boys know that they matter, that while different things in the media or people around them or society might tell them that they're not good enough, I remind them every day before they walk out the house that they're good enough. And so I think it's important to affirm all of the messages or counter all of the messages that we have heard about black people or certain communities. I think that is particularly important right now.
Okay. We have a question from a student, and they ask, how do I find out about centers on college campuses?
centers in terms of student organizations?
I would assume so.
Yeah, so on the Cowbell Connect page, which is located under Center for Student Activities, it has all of the different organizations on campus. There are over 300 student organizations, so there is a way to get connected. And one of the awesome things that I really appreciate about Mississippi State, if you don't see an organization that fits you, you have the opportunity to create one. And so you can search the student organizations based upon dance groups or singing groups or honor societies. And so just going through and seeing what all Mississippi State has to offer. And the good thing is, too, through Cowbell Connect, you can even email the presidents and ask them to send more information about their organizations.
Okay. We have another question. What advice would you give to a high school student to be successful in college?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think my biggest advice would be not to suffer in silence, to get connected. So introduce yourself to faculty and staff within the classroom. Find good mentors here on campus that's going to be able to mentor you, that's going to be able to coach you, that's going to be able to sponsor you, because that really does make the difference. So, there are several different organizations and programs out here. So within the Holmes Culture Diversity Center, we have the Bridges program. So this program partners freshmen and sophomore students with faculty and staff on campus. So I know my Bridges student comes over and eat dinner with me and my family. We went fishing a few weekends ago, and so it's just a really good way to build relationships, and they really become your family while you're here in college.
Okay, we have a crew leader. She said, "Hey, Ms. Yoshida, would you give advice? What advice would you give to young minority girls who are scared to take the next steps in life due to adversities put on by society?"
That's a good question. I think that the answer will be do it even if you're scared. Do it scared. So, when I think about myself, even the role of Vice President of Access, Diversity, and Inclusion is the first ever Vice President role in this way. And initially, when I was asked to take this responsibility, I had to ask myself, can I do this? And the answer is, yes, I can do it. That I feel like that I have done the work, I'm smart enough, I've worked hard, and so that's what I have to rest on. And then rest upon the fact that I have people in my corner that when I don't think that I can do it, can tell me that I can do it, that I have a support system that's around me. So I say just step out and do it even if you're scared.
Okay, and we'll have one final question. What advice would you give to a Black student attending a PWI?
That's also a really good question. So a Black student attending a predominantly white institution, my advice to you, number one, I think the first thing that I would say is to remember that you belong here in this space. And so I think that's really important, because I know right now the biggest debate is, a historical Black university versus a predominantly white institution. And we're not going to get off on the debate of what is better, because ultimately you have to do what is best for you. And if that's going to a HBCU, if that's going to a PWI. But I think the first thing to know is that even if you come to a predominantly white institution, you belong here. Again, I think it goes back to the idea of finding your community, whatever that community looks like. It doesn't have to be just being around all Black students. Get involved in whatever it is that you want to do. But I do think community is the number one thing that's really important to provide a sense of belonging here at the university.
Thank you so much, Vice President Forbes. That was amazing. Thank you also, students, for answering the questions. Also, as we all know, the 2020 election is so very important. So if you are eligible to vote, I highly encourage you to exercise your right to vote. On our website, we have many resources regarding to voting and how to register to vote. Let's take a look at a video about why voting is so important.
Brothers and sisters, do you want to go back? Or do you want to keep America moving forward? I've seen this before. I lived this before. Too many people struggled, suffered, and died to make it possible for every American to exercise their right to vote. We must march to the polls like never, ever before. We must come together and exercise our sacred right. Your vote is precious, almost sacred. It is the most powerful non-violent tool we have to create a more perfect union. We have come too far together to ever turn back.
I think it's our opportunity as younger people to kind of take up what they've left off and do the best we can.
History shows that if we show up to the polls and vote, we have the power to influence outcomes.
I am reminded of all those folks beaten trying to register voters in Mississippi, risked everything so that they could pull that lever. If I hear anybody saying their vote does not matter, that it doesn't matter who we elect, read up on your history. It matters. We've got to get people to vote.
John Lewis and his generation fought for our right to vote. The message for peace, for racial justice, for economic equity, and for all mankind the world over is just as relevant today as it was then. We are in a fight for our future.
We are in a new civil rights movement. The world is changing. Your voice is more important now than ever before. America has come a long way. So many people fought, suffered, and died for your right to vote. If you're between the ages of 18 and 35, this election is on you. If it didn't matter, they wouldn't be trying so hard to keep you from voting. The time is now. You must vote.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, till they ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening sky.
8 minutes and 46
Let it resound loud as the rolling sea.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you have learned a lot so far. Now would be a good time to talk to a couple of our college students who have impacted a great social change within their communities. Tonight, we will be speaking with Macy Brown and Nevaeh Payne. Macy, can you please introduce yourself?
Hey, my name is Macy Brown. I am currently a freshman at North Carolina A&T, but I am a Mississippi native, a graduate of Murrah High School. And I was one of the lead organizers for the protest that we held in front of the governor's mansion in Jackson, Mississippi over this summer in June that brought out, one of the largest crowds that we've had since the civil rights era here in Mississippi. So I'm really excited to be here with you guys tonight. Just kind of tell you a little bit about my journey.
Thank you so much, Macy. Now, Nevaeh.
Hi guys, I'm Nevaeh Payne. I'm a double major in political science and English here at Mississippi State University. I am an activist for minorities, and I'm also a feminist who's a womanist.
Thank you so much, Nevaeh. Now we will get into our questions that we'll be asking our panelists. First question, can you each please tell us about the movements you were a part of? Macy?
So I guess I kind of touched on a little bit in my introduction. I was a part of a group, BLM SIP, which is kind of short for Black Lives Matter Mississippi. We kind of brought ourselves together after the George Floyd murder, just as we kind of saw uprise across the country itself. We wanted Mississippi to be a part of that conversation. We wanted Mississippi to be a part of what the country was building. And so that kind of led us onto organizing the protest, and just the outpouring of support, donations, and just how willing people were to risk their lives, in the midst of a pandemic in order to make a statement. And show that Mississippi was ready for change and contribute to that energy. I felt like had a huge boost, not only on social justice involvement among Jacksonians and Mississippians in general, but just a lot of the energy surrounding it right here, which I think had a great impact on how fast we were able to get the state flag down. And how fast we're able to get some progressive policies on our ballots right now and in the future. And also just with the possibility, such a close possibility of electing a Black Democratic man to our Senate, which hasn't happened since Reconstruction. I think a lot of the energy that was created then is helping make our idea of a progressive Mississippi more plausible. And more likely. And my activism kind of stems back from middle school and high school of working on the Mississippi state flag, just different Black Lives Matter issues. But I think now it has been a really great time just because we've seen so much involvement from people who typically weren't even interested in things like that.
That's amazing, Maisie. Thank you so much. Nevaeh, could you tell us a little bit about the movement you were a part of?
I think that's a good question. I've been a part of any movement I've heard of, from local, being Biloxi, Mississippi, or to Jackson, and I even got a chance to go to Washington and be a part of that. Any movement I've heard of, I've been in it. Recently, we've had one here, and it's been a sit-down talk hosted by my personal friend, Aspen Holmes. And just being there and hearing people's testimonies and getting out and lifting your voice, whether that be singing, dancing, writing, using your talent. It's just been a blessing to be a part of all the amazing movements and all the amazing things that people have done, Black or any other minority or race group. You've been stepping out and we've been hearing your voice, and it's continuing, and we continue every single day.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. Could you both tell us about any personal experiences you have had with social injustice?
As far as personal experience, I feel like I've definitely experienced, microaggressions. I've definitely experienced, what I consider discrimination, or just the lack of expectations and lower expectations because of my skin tone, because I am a woman, because I am, during high school, I was in a lot of spaces, and, especially being a debater, a Black woman debater in Mississippi, I can count them on my hand. Just being in those environments of being the other, which I wasn't used to going to a predominantly Black school district all of my life, really just put into perspective how much of a race issue is still prevalent within America. I think that too often we think that, racial issues, they make slavery seem as if it was thousands of years ago, or some ancient thing. They make civil rights movement seem like it was centuries ago, and it was only decades ago. Many of our grandparents and parents were alive for that. And so I think for a lot of us, those racial issues and tension have been kind of pushed to the back of our heads until recently, and not even realizing that so much of what we face day to day contributed to that, and why we're experiencing such civil unrest now. And so I think for me, it's kind of like a buildup of smaller things, and then also just kind of seeing Black death and Black tragedy just blasted across our television screens and our social media constantly, and that weighs down on you whether you know the people or not.
That's a very good point, Macy. Thank you so much for that. Nevaeh, would you like to share any personal experiences you've had with social injustice?
Yeah, I'm gonna just take it right back to the beginning. I remember being 8 and being part of a very openly racist family, and just maybe it was a hot day, and I actually went to my grandmother's house later to find out that house was actually built around a plantation. And I went to her house, and I'm just trying to go inside and get some water, and I remember being denied entrance to my own grandmother's house. And I remember having the concept and understanding of, hey, my skin's darker, but not understanding why that mattered. and later to find out that you know, I wasn't accepted there was it was hard to be 8 and hear that. So that was just the beginning of so much oppression that I would personally experience in my own life as I got older. And being educated in school, you know, you hear a little bit about minority groups, and you hear the biggest thing, the civil rights movement, but you don't hear what happened before that or what's going on after that. And being able to hear those things, I kind of took it upon myself to research and find out more about my own people and my own history. And taking that, I have just fueled my own aiding into this fight, and constantly every day I haven't given up.
Thank you for sharing that powerful testimony with us, Nevaeh. I also want to ask, why do you think it is important for younger generations to be aware of and active in our current social climate?
I think that, you know, we have to be active now because the policies that they're passing now and the people that they are electing now are who are going to be representing us in the policies that we have to live with in the future. And so I feel like if you allow your future to be dictated by someone else who won't even be here to, you know, experience that or be here to really feel the impacts of that, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And even for people I know who are too young to vote or weren't registered to vote or anything like that, it's still important to be a part of the movement now because you're gonna be the one to live with it. You're gonna be the one to live with it. And so I think that we have to kind of stress the importance of this isn't just a now election. This isn't just a now time. This is the election for our lives, the election for our futures, you know, the policies that will affect us for decades and decades, because you saw how long the last policies lasted. So don't you want to be a part of making sure that at least this time when we're stuck with them, there are actually some good policies that actually benefit people who look like us. And so I think just kind of emphasizing that point in that motion and making it seem more relevant, not just a today thing, but today, maybe our kids and maybe our grandkids type of thing.
Thank you so much for that, Macy. You made some very good points. Nevaeh?
I think when we're speaking about this, I think we think about generations. I mean, we're children ourselves, but one day we'll have children. You want your children to walk these streets free. You want your children to be able to go in and go to any college, whether it be a PWI or HBCU. I think when you're thinking about the bigger picture, it's the future. I don't know how everyone else feels, but my kids should be able to walk these streets free. I shouldn't have to worry about my child being shot down or discriminated against because he's in a car or because of the color of his skin tone. It's about the future generations. And like Maisie said, these people we are electing, they're not going to be here forever. It's up to us to take position in office and make a change. And we can do that. We have the opportunity to do that. So it's all about future generations for me.
Thank you so much, Nevaeh. Now we will accept some questions from our attendees here tonight. Let's start with Macy. What can Mississippians do to help the movement continue?
I think what Mississippians can do is, first of all, I think we have to band together and just find our common ground. I think that too often people think that social justice issues or saying Black Lives Matter or advocating for people to wear a mask, I think we're making too many things that shouldn't have to be political. I believe that, of course, I believe in the difference of politics and difference of opinion, but I also believe in basic ethics and what's right and what's wrong, no matter who you ask or who you affiliate yourself with. And I think that if we really just sit down and decide, hey, like morally, ethically, this is wrong. This is something that everyone should be behind, no matter how you identify, no matter what color you are, that just we shouldn't be okay with any injustice against any person, regardless of who they are, what they did, what their past is, anything. And so I think if Mississippians can come together, regardless of party, regardless of color, regardless of any of that, and just be able to acknowledge that wrong is wrong and right is right, then we'll be able to do something. I think that, just as, James Baldwin talks, if you listen to him talk, it's like he's talking about right now. And, one thing that he talked about continuously was moral apathy among white people. Moral apathy of just simply being in the mix and not really taking a stance on what's right and what's wrong and what's moral and what's not. And so I think for Mississippians, especially living in a state that's almost split 50-50 and have people who are left-leaning and right-leaning, especially as we saw with the Senate election votes in 2018 and what we're seeing now, just that 1 point difference, we see that we're kind of teetering on an edge of change or an edge of, we're almost split in the middle right now. I know we're a red state, But despite popular belief, we are almost split in the middle. But I don't think that middle is ever going to move if people from both sides aren't willing to come together and find just some basic common ground that they are on. Because when you find something that you have in common with somebody, it's a lot easier to work together. Therefore.
Thank you so much for that very informative answer. Our next question will be for Nevaeh. Do you think the quest for social justice will require efforts from majority groups that are not part of the marginalized groups?
I think that's a good question. I think, yes. I mean, when you think about it, white voices are often heard more than black voices or any minority voices. I think you have to acknowledge and deconstruct your whiteness to acknowledge that there are other people out in the world that are suffering from daily oppression that was built into the system of America. You hear that famous quote from Fannie Lou Hamer, "I am sick and tired of being sick and tired." And we are sick and tired. Well, most recently, the modern generation just talks about 2020 and how we're barely making it. We're mentally drained. This has been going on for hundreds of years. So I think, yes, you do have to deconstruct your whiteness and reach out. And that's not just talking about white people. We're talking about minorities, any group. Jump in, lift your voice, and help us. You know, we're here to continue a fight, but you can also continue to help us fight. So good question.
Thank you, Nevaeh. That was a very strong answer. And to piggyback off that question, I would like to ask one more. What does being an ally to the Black community look like to you? Macy.
Oh, it's for me. Okay, that was for the follow up for Nevaeh. I think the most important, I feel like the biggest mistake of people who want to be allies is, I feel like we all, any type of activist this summer probably got like a bunch of messages from like their white acquaintances or friends saying, I see you, like, I feel you, like, like I'm looking into, don't do that. Like, no, you don't. And it's okay that you don't. Like, you don't have to feel me. You don't have to understand exactly how it feels to be Black in America and be hunted like animals. Like, you don't feel that. You can't see that. But at least what I need you to be able to do is acknowledge that is a reality for me. And I think that too often we ask Black people how we're going to fix problems that Black people did not create. Racism is not something we came up with. Jim Crow laws are not something that we came up with. The exploitation of slaves in the United States is not something that we came up with. But suddenly we're asked to alleviate and mediate every issue that stems from those different things. And so I think the biggest thing an ally can do for me is to do the necessary work within your own community. Of course, it's great to have insight from people like us because we are the faces of the movement. We are the ones who are leading the charge. But it's also time for you to, okay, once you have the information from us, once you've consulted us, once you've asked, then you go out and do the work with people who look like you. I don't necessarily need you to tell Black people, oh, I'm so sorry. We've been hearing sorry forever, even though we never got reparations for it. It's a tired conversation. The harder conversation is what is the conversation to have with your family who have those thoughts, who you just write off as just, they're just these types of people. It's those friends that you had in college that you didn't say anything to, and they said different little slick things that you knew weren't right, but you didn't want to rattle the table. So it's doing that hard work within your own community, people who look like you, and not more so focusing on what you can do for Black people. Think about how I can support Black people, how I can listen to Black people, but how also I can help the people in my community who are the ones who really, really have the problem and who are the ones who create the problems.
Thank you, Macy. That was a really great answer. I agree. I would also like to ask you the same thing, Nevaeh. What does an ally look like to you?
I think for me, when we're speaking about allies, since Macy answered that question greatly, I think about my professors and my mentors and the people that I've been able to meet along my journey in college and just life in general. And when you're speaking about these people, the only reason that I became such a huge activist and got changed within the English department here at Mississippi State University was because my professor pushed me to. And she put her name on the line. And we're talking about a Black woman who is a female professor with tenure, putting her name on the line to protect me. I called out the president of Mississippi State University because there's very much oppression and there's very much a lack of diversity and inclusion. A white woman shouldn't be teaching me about African American studies. So calling out and just having those people who are willing to step up and protect you as you call out the injustice within your own communities and systems. That's what an ally looks like for me.
Thank you so much, guys. These are some really great answers. I really appreciate y'all for taking the time to answer our questions tonight. For our students, we hope that you have enjoyed tonight's show and that you have learned a lot from it and how to be a positive change within your communities. I want to thank Ms. Rashida, Nevaeh, and Macy for being our panelists and our informers here tonight. We really appreciate you all coming out and being the light and positive social change within your communities. For our students, don't forget to sign up for your breakout sessions, and you can see my session this Thursday at 7. Have a good night.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, till they ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening sky.
8 minutes and 46
Let it resound loud as the
We here.
rolling sea.